There is a special kind of peace that only a morning on the land can offer. Imagine waking while the world is still quiet, stepping outside with a warm cup of coffee, and hearing the soft, steady clucking of your hens. You open the nesting box, and there they are, fresh, warm eggs, the perfect breakfast, produced right in your own backyard. Families have lived this way for generations, and here on Farmyard Care, we always say, if you want to feel closer to the earth, turn kitchen scraps into nourishing food, and teach your children responsibility, start with a few chickens. It can become one of the most rewarding journeys you will ever take. But today, let us be completely honest. I have seen more people than I can count begin in the gentle warmth of spring, full of hope, only to be heartbroken when autumn arrives. Half of their beautiful flock may be gone, taken by predators, while the remaining birds huddle in a corner, cold, stressed, and no longer laying a single egg. And each time, it is not because those keepers did not care. It is because of a small number of simple, quiet mistakes. Mistakes that could have been avoided almost instantly if someone had shared the old, time-tested wisdom with them. My name is Elias Yoder, and I have kept laying hens all my life. We have walked this road, experienced the heartbreak of losing birds, and gradually discovered the quiet secrets of keeping a flock healthy, thriving, and content through every season. Today, I want to help protect you from those painful losses. We are going to uncover the 12 deadly mistakes new chicken keepers make. Some can kill your birds outright. Others will quietly steal your eggs and drain your hard-earned money. But once you understand the rules, every one of them becomes surprisingly easy to avoid. Mistake 1. The age versus size trap. Mixing birds incorrectly. Our first deadly mistake is a classic one, and it can end in genuine heartbreak. Placing small, young chickens in with large, fully grown birds. It happens so easily. You already have a beautiful, established flock of mature hens, and then spring returns. You spot those adorable, half-grown pullets at the feed store, or perhaps your younger chicks have finally feathered out, and you think, they will learn to get along eventually. Let's just put them together in the run. You carry on with your day, believing everything is fine. But when you return to the coop at dusk, you may find injured young birds, or even birds that have been killed. The reason lies deep within the rigid psychology of the flock. A chicken does not understand age. A mature hen cannot look at a young pullet and think, that is only a baby, so I should be gentle with her. No, a chicken recognizes one thing above all else: size. In the mind of a bird, size determines hierarchy. When a mature hen sees another chicken that is significantly smaller, she does not see a youngster. She sees a weaker intruder that must be forced into its place. And when the size difference is enormous, that correction can quickly turn into relentless group attacks, violent pecking around the head, and ultimately, death. The golden rule of introducing chickens is simple, but it cannot be ignored. Do not combine birds according to age. Combine them according to size. Wait until your young pullets have grown to almost the same physical size as your mature hens before allowing them to share the same space. Even then, the introduction must happen gradually. You might let the two groups see one another through a secure wire barrier for a week, or place them together after dark so they wake up as one flock. The same size means similar strength and a fairer chance of safely finding their place in the pecking order. Never rush this process, or you may learn a lesson you will never forget. Mistake 2. The silent winter starvation. Forgetting the grit. Imagine sitting before a table covered with food while slowly starving to death. That is the tragic reality behind our second mistake, failing to provide grit, especially when the cold grip of winter settles over your homestead. To understand how this can happen, we need to look at the remarkable anatomy of a chicken. Chickens do not have teeth, not even one. So how do they break down the hard grains, tough seeds, and corn they swallow? The work happens inside the gizzard, an incredibly powerful muscular organ located deep within the digestive system. The gizzard functions like a chicken's teeth, but it cannot perform that job alone. It depends on small, hard stones and coarse grains of sand that the bird deliberately swallows. Those stones remain inside the gizzard, crushing and grinding the food whenever its powerful muscles contract. Throughout the warmer months of spring and summer, chickens roaming freely around the yard naturally collect the pebbles and grit they need directly from the ground. But winter brings a dangerous change. The soil freezes solid, or a thick layer of snow completely covers it. Suddenly, your hens lose access to their natural supply of stones. At the same time, many keepers begin offering whole corn to help their birds stay warm. If you feed that corn without also providing a separate container of insoluble granite grit, your chickens may fill their crops with grain. But without those small stones inside the gizzard, they cannot properly grind even one kernel. The corn moves through their bodies without being digested, and the birds can literally starve with their crops still full of food. Keep a strong container of commercial grit filled, clean, and dry inside the coop throughout the winter. It is not an optional supplement. It is a lifeline. Mistake 3. The exposed nest box. Poor nest siting. Now let us look at a mistake that may not kill your chickens, but can quietly steal your eggs, your peace of mind, and your profits. A nesting box that is poorly designed or placed in the wrong location. When a hen feels the biological urge to lay, she follows an instinct that has guided birds for thousands of years. In the wild, no bird would willingly lay her precious offspring in an exposed location where a predator could easily see it. She is naturally driven to search for a place that is quiet, dark, private, clean, and safely removed from activity. She wants to feel hidden, secure, and undisturbed. Yet many new keepers install nesting boxes beside a busy entrance or directly beneath bright sunlight. When the boxes are noisy, exposed, or constantly disturbed, hens may reject them completely. They will hold their eggs until they discover a dark corner beneath a bush, or they will lay directly on the dirty coop floor, where the eggs can be stepped on, cracked, and covered with manure. To avoid this problem, place your nesting boxes, ideally measuring about 12 by 12 by 12 inches, in the darkest, quietest, and most private corner of the coop, roughly 2 feet above the ground. Fill each box with clean straw or fresh wood shavings. A hen may completely refuse to use a nesting box that is dirty or fouled. When your hens suddenly appear to stop laying, do not immediately assume they are sick. Inspect the nesting boxes first. Are they clean? Are they private? Give your hens the peace and darkness their instincts demand, and your egg baskets may soon begin filling again. Mistake 4. The sun-drenched trap. No choice of sun and shade. Our fourth mistake is a silent summer killer. Building a coop or run where chickens cannot choose between sunlight and shade. We need to understand one basic biological limitation of these feathered birds. Chickens cannot sweat. They do not have sweat glands. When the intense heat of summer arrives, they cannot lower their body temperature the way humans do. Instead, they depend on behavioral methods to cool themselves. They raise and spread their wings to expose the bare skin beneath, release heat through the blood-rich tissue of their combs and wattles, and pant heavily to evaporate moisture from their lungs. But this respiratory cooling consumes tremendous energy and places enormous strain on their bodies. In the wild, chickens manage this problem by moving from place to place. During the cool morning hours, they bask in the warm sunlight, warming their bodies and enjoying their dust baths. But when the midday sun rises and the air becomes unbearably hot, they retreat into the cool, deep shade beneath trees and shrubs. They need access to both environments, and they must be free to choose between them. If you place a chicken run in a completely exposed area with no tree canopy, shade cloth, or covered section of roof, you are creating a genuine death trap on a scorching afternoon. Heat can kill a chicken much faster than cold. Make sure the run always includes a permanently shaded refuge, whether you create it with a shade sail or a covered portion of the roof. Give your birds the freedom to move between their own small climate zones. Mistake 5. The diatomaceous earth myth. Misunderstanding pest control. Spend even 10 minutes reading online chicken keeping forums, and you will probably hear about a supposedly magical cure-all powder known as diatomaceous earth, or simply DE. Let me be completely clear and honest, because a great deal of dangerous misinformation surrounds this mineral. Diatomaceous earth is a soft white powder made from the fossilized remains of tiny aquatic organisms. To the touch, it feels as fine and gentle as baking flour. But beneath a microscope, it is composed of microscopic silica crystals with extremely sharp edges. When an insect with an exoskeleton, such as a mite or louse, crawls through dry DE, those crystals cut through its waxy protective outer layer, causing it to dehydrate and die. For this reason, dry diatomaceous earth can be a powerful, natural, and highly effective tool against external pests. Adding a handful to a dry dust bathing area or applying it along the cracks around roosting bars and nesting boxes can help keep mites and lice under control. But this is where myth must be separated from science. Many people will tell you to mix diatomaceous earth directly into your chicken's daily feed to kill internal worms. The simple truth is that it does not work. As soon as DE enters a chicken's mouth and combines with saliva and digestive fluids, it becomes wet. Once wet, those microscopic edges completely lose their abrasive action and become little more than soft mud. It has absolutely no effect on internal parasites. If you depend on this powder to treat a genuine worm infestation, your birds will continue suffering. Watch for dirty or stained eggshells and watery, foul droppings, which are common signs of a heavy worm burden. Treat affected chickens with a proven veterinary deworming product, or speak with a local veterinarian. Mistake 6. The water neglect. Letting water run short or freeze, our sixth mistake, may be one of the easiest to make. Yet it can also become one of the fastest killers. Allowing the water supply to run low, become filthy, or freeze completely solid. Here is a biological fact that surprises nearly every beginner. Water is far more important than feed. A chicken can survive without food for a surprisingly long period and still make a complete, healthy recovery. But deny a laying hen clean water for even one afternoon during a hot summer day, and the effects begin immediately. An egg is made up of nearly 75% water. The moment a hen's body detects even mild dehydration, it shuts down egg production to protect its vital organs. Just one day without water can stop hens from laying for several weeks, while severe dehydration may cause permanent kidney damage or lead to a painful death. Water must remain fresh, clean, and cool at all times. Chickens are extremely sensitive to both taste and smell. If droppings contaminate their waterer, they may refuse to drink and choose thirst instead. During winter, the danger shifts from evaporation to freezing. A waterer frozen into a solid block of ice is no different from having no water available at all. I have seen people lose an entire winter laying cycle, and even lose birds they deeply cared about, simply because they assumed the water was fine without realizing it had frozen solid only a few hours after sunrise. During freezing weather, inspect the coop several times each day and break any ice that forms, or use a safe heated base. Winter dehydration is every bit as deadly as summer dehydration. Never allow their drinking containers to run dry. Mistake 7. The toxic kindness. Sealing the coop too tight in winter. When bitter winter winds sweep across the yard, our natural human instinct is to protect. We want to wrap the coop tightly, close every tiny crack, stop every draft, and make the space as warm and airtight as a modern house. That desire comes from genuine care and kindness. But in poultry keeping, this kind of kindness can become toxic and deadly. To understand why, consider what takes place inside an enclosed space filled with birds. A coop full of chickens produces an enormous amount of moisture and gas. Every breath releases water vapor into the air. Their nitrogen-rich droppings constantly give off both moisture and heavy ammonia gas. When a coop is sealed completely airtight, all of that dampness and ammonia becomes trapped inside with nowhere to escape. This stagnant, moisture-filled air is far more dangerous to a chicken than dry, freezing air could ever be. When high humidity combines with sub-freezing temperatures, moisture condenses directly on the exposed tissue of their combs and causes frostbite. Trapped ammonia is also extremely corrosive. It damages delicate lungs, paralyzes the tiny cilia lining the respiratory passages, and leaves the birds highly vulnerable to infections such as chronic respiratory disease. The golden rule for winter coop design is simple. Block drafts near the bottom, but allow air to flow near the top. The walls around the roosting bars should be solid, so that cold wind never blows directly across the chickens while they sleep. At the same time, open vents must remain high near the roofline, well above the birds' heads. These openings allow warm, damp air to escape safely, while fresh, dry air enters from below. Keep the flock dry, keep the air circulating, and allow their feathers to provide the warmth. Mistake 8. The chicken wire delusion. Careless predator defense. Now let us step into the darkness, because this is where the most devastating tragedies happen. Nearly every predator around you, The fox, raccoon, weasel, hawk, owl, opossum, and even the friendly dog next door looks at a chicken and sees only one thing: a slow, soft, defenseless meal. The most common and expensive mistake made by new keepers is what I call the chicken wire delusion. Because it is called chicken wire, we naturally assume it was designed to protect chickens. But here is the painful truth. Chicken wire is meant to keep chickens inside. It is almost useless for keeping predators outside. A hungry neighborhood dog can rip through it like wet paper. A raccoon can push its clever hand-like paws through the hexagonal openings, seize a sleeping hen, and pull her apart through the wire. Even a small weasel can squeeze through an opening no wider than a wedding ring. For genuine life-saving protection, chicken wire must be removed from the outer perimeter. What you need is heavy hardware cloth, a rigid, welded square steel mesh with openings no larger than ½ an inch. Secure it tightly using strong U-shaped nails or screws fitted with washers. Because foxes and dogs are expert diggers, bury the hardware cloth at least 12 to 18 inches into the ground, or extend it outward across the soil in an L-shaped apron. You must also remember that raccoons have clever hands capable of opening simple latches. Every coop door and nesting box hatch should be protected with a secure locking fastener, such as a spring-loaded carabiner. Lock the coop firmly every single night. Mistake 9. The dust bath denial. Not giving them a dust bath. If you have never raised chickens, the idea of a dust bath may sound completely wrong. How could an animal possibly become clean by rolling around in dirt? But for a chicken, dust bathing is not a luxury. It is a natural, instinctive form of personal hygiene and parasite control. Tiny external parasites, including microscopic mites and lice, are a constant danger. They crawl deep beneath the feathers, bite the skin, feed on blood, and cause continuous irritation, stress, and anemia. Chickens cannot wash themselves with water. Instead, a hen scratches out a shallow hollow in dry, loose soil. She lowers herself into it, fluffs out her feathers, and forcefully works the fine dust all the way down against her skin. That dust blocks the breathing pores of mites and lice, smothering them, while its abrasive movement helps dislodge them from her body. If the run remains constantly wet, muddy, or completely covered with grass, leaving no access to dry, loose earth, your flock is being denied this essential defense. Chickens without a dry bathing area can quickly become overwhelmed by parasites, resulting in ragged feathers, bald patches, and a serious decline in egg production. If your run stays damp, provide a separate dust bathing area. Use an old plastic container, a wooden box, or a large tire, and fill it with a dry blend of topsoil, coarse sand, fireplace wood ash, and a light layer of diatomaceous earth. Your hens will gladly handle the rest, helping keep their skin clean, healthy, and free of parasites. Mistake 10. The calcium drain. Not feeding calcium for layers. Our 10th mistake is a quiet internal crisis that steals your hen's health and takes away the beautiful, farm-fresh eggs you expect from them. Calcium depletion. Consider the remarkable biological process of laying eggs. A healthy hen can produce almost 1 egg every day. The shell of that egg is made almost entirely from calcium carbonate. To build a strong shell day after day, her body must release calcium at an astonishing rate. This creates an enormous nutritional demand. If her daily diet does not provide enough calcium to replace what she loses, 2 devastating problems begin. First, you will notice weak, thin-shelled, or paper-soft eggs that break with the lightest pressure. But the damage happening inside her body is even worse. A hen's reproductive system is so strongly driven to produce an egg that when dietary calcium is lacking, her body will begin breaking down her own bones to obtain the calcium required for the shell. Over time, this can cause severe osteoporosis, weakened legs, paralysis, and the complete physical collapse of the bird. To prevent this, laying hens 18 weeks old and above must always have free access to a separate calcium source. The traditional and proven option is crushed oyster shell. Place it in its own container beside the regular feeder. Do not mix it directly into their everyday feed. There is also a simple and economical homestead method that I love: recycling their own eggshells. Save the used shells, bake them at a low temperature for several minutes until they are dry and sterile, and then crush them into small pieces. Return them to the calcium dish as a supplement. Just be sure they are thoroughly crushed, so they no longer resemble whole eggs. Mistake 11. The golden invitation, not gathering eggs often enough. This brings us to a miserable and deeply frustrating habit that is remarkably easy to begin and almost impossible to stop. Allowing eggs to remain in the nesting box for too long. It may seem completely harmless. You become busy, or you tell yourself, I'll collect the eggs tomorrow morning instead. But leaving eggs in the nesting boxes can invite disaster for 3 clear reasons. First, unattended eggs are extremely vulnerable. As hens enter and leave the boxes throughout the day to take their turns laying, one of them may eventually step on an egg and crack it. Second, during the heat of summer, eggs left for several days can quickly begin to spoil. In the freezing cold of winter, they may freeze solid, split their shells, and become completely useless. But the third and most damaging danger is the development of an egg-eating habit. If an egg breaks inside the nest and a curious hen pecks at it, she will taste the rich, delicious, protein-filled golden yolk. In that instant, she discovers that the hard, round object sitting in her nest contains an irresistible source of food. Once a hen learns this lesson, she may begin deliberately pecking and breaking fresh eggs so she can eat them. And here is the worst part. Chickens learn by watching one another. The moment one hen begins eating eggs, the rest of the flock may observe her, copy the behavior, and join in. Within a single week, one accidentally broken egg can transform an entire flock into a group of egg-devouring thieves. Prevent this by collecting eggs every day, and checking the coop twice daily is even better. Keep the nesting boxes filled with clean straw to cushion the eggs, and immediately remove and clean up any accidental breakage. Mistake 12. Chicken math and the overcrowding crisis. This brings us to our 12th and final mistake, the great hidden force behind nearly every problem we have discussed today: overcrowding. Among backyard chicken keepers, there is a well-known running joke called chicken math. You begin with plans for only 4 gentle little hens. Then you discover a beautiful new breed, or you find a tempting deal on chicks. Suddenly, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 12, and before you realize what has happened, you are caring for a large flock. It is an easy passion to fall into. But when your enthusiasm grows faster than your coop, you are moving directly toward a biological disaster. An overcrowded coop becomes a stressed, unhealthy, and violent coop. Chickens are highly territorial animals, governed by a strict and delicate social system known as the pecking order. When too many birds are forced into a limited space, they are constantly standing in one another's way. The pecking order is challenged again and again. Stress levels rise, and ordinary pecking can quickly escalate into severe feather pulling, open injuries, and bloody, fatal cannibalism. Blood acts like a powerful magnet to chickens. Once they notice even a single red drop on another bird, they may peck at the wound relentlessly. Overcrowding also allows moisture, ammonia, and disease-causing organisms to accumulate at an uncontrollable speed. Respiratory illness and coccidiosis can then spread through the entire flock within only a few days. You must respect the physical limits of space. As a strict minimum, each standard-sized chicken needs at least 2 to 4 square feet of indoor coop floor area and 8 to 10 square feet of outdoor run space. If your flock lives in a small urban yard without the opportunity to free range, it is wiser to provide even more room. With poultry, placing more chickens into a smaller area does not produce more eggs. It creates more disease, more fighting, and fewer eggs. Give your birds the space they deserve, and they will reward you with calm, good health, and years of abundant harvests. Walking the path of self-reliance. When we look back through the history of our land, keeping a few dependable hens was one of the simplest and most essential steps a family could take toward feeding itself without depending on a store. It was a quiet and beautiful kind of knowledge. But as the decades passed, life moved faster, and people drifted farther from the soil, so that old wisdom gradually stopped being handed down. Not because anyone deliberately hid it, but simply because there was no money to be made from telling it. The old path slowly became covered with weeds. Today, however, we are beginning to walk that path once again. We are remembering that our ancestors built their lives with their own hands, and we are choosing to restore that spirit of self-reliance in our own backyards. Raising chickens is a partnership. It requires patience, a little work, and the willingness to learn from every mistake. But when you care for them properly, there is truly nothing else quite like it. Today, I want to ask one simple favor. If you keep chickens, walk out to your coop right now and check only two things. Make sure they have clean, fresh water that is neither contaminated nor frozen. Make sure the coop door closes securely with a fastener that even a clever raccoon cannot defeat. Those two simple inspections alone can save more birds than all the other precautions combined. After you have checked them, come down to the comments and join our community. Tell me how long you have raised chickens, which part of the world you are watching from, and which mistake taught you the hardest lesson when you first began. Every one of us has lost a bird to something. By sharing your experience in the comments, you may help the next new keeper avoid the same mistake and keep a chicken alive. In our next video, I am finally going to fulfill a promise I have carried for far too long. Today, we discussed how to keep a coop dry, well ventilated, and protected from direct drafts. As it happens, that same old wisdom can also keep a home comfortable through a bitter winter night. We are going to uncover the secrets of traditional homestead insulation and building science. You will not want to miss it. Until then, match your birds according to size. Keep their grit containers full. Give them quiet, dark nesting boxes. Provide access to both sunlight and shade. Use diatomaceous earth only where it works. Keep their water available. Maintain airflow near the top of the coop. Secure every latch. Give them a dry place to dust bathe. Provide oyster shells. Collect their eggs every day. And always, always, give your chickens enough room to grow. Thank you for spending this morning with me, here on Farmyard Care. Stay safe, continue caring for your land, and we will speak again soon. Goodbye.